Hello everyone, I'm Corinne Joy Votaw, sports photographer, podcaster, and I guess YouTuber now. I feel like once you hit a certain number of subscribers, you're allowed to say that out loud. So to the 10,000 subscribers who have joined me so far on this journey, thank you so much. Now, recently I reviewed the Zoom PodTrack P2. And if you saw that video, you know that I wasn't thrilled. Not because I dislike Zoom. I usually trust them as a solid audio brand, but because that product just didn't deliver what it should have for the price and for the promise. After that review, a bunch of you told me, very confidently, hey Corinne, you're looking at the wrong one. The P4 Next is the one. It's light years ahead. So I took the hint, got one sent to me, and we're gonna see if it actually fixes the stuff that drove me crazy about the P2, and whether it's a legit grab-and-go podcast setup. Now, before we dive in, here's a little context. My normal audio rig for podcasting and streaming is the Mackie DLZ Creator. I use the bigger one when I've got multiple guests in person, and I use the XS version on my desk. It just lives there. It fits great in my workflow, especially when I'm doing anything involving video or live streaming because of the NDI features. So I say that to say I'm not usually one of the people that grab one of these like all-in-one combo boxes. But as I've been playing with the P4, I gotta tell you, it's surprisingly capable. Now, out of the gate, the feature set is exactly what you want this kind of product to be. You've got 4 XLR inputs, 4 headphone outputs, each with individual volume controls. You have USB-C connectivity. You can run it power USB-C or with batteries and grab and go. You got sound pads, so playing stingers or things like that. You have mute buttons per channel, and you got some audio features that we'll review a little bit later. Like, it's clearly designed for people who just want to grab it and go and run with it. Now, Zoom also claims that the preamps can give you about 70 decibels of gain, which matters a lot because podcast-style microphones can be really gain hungry. So the big question for me is, can this thing actually drive real broadcast-style mics cleanly without needing an external booster and without turning it into a noisy mess? And that's what we're going to test. I'm doing a quick audio shootout with 4 dynamic microphones using the most common microphones podcasters use. We have the Electro-Voice RE20, classic broadcast microphone. We have the Shure SM7B, which is kind of the default pro podcast mic that everyone recognizes. We've got the Shure SM58, which is, without question, the most popular microphone ever made. And then we have the SE Dynacaster, which is interesting because it has a built-in preamp that you can turn on with phantom power to get more boost out of it. And fun fact, it's actually my favorite mic for podcasting. I think SE took the SM7B and said, how can we make this more usable for everyone? Now, I wouldn't use it for studio tracking like instruments or anything like that because it definitely adds some flavor, but for broadcasting, it slaps. Before I get into the mic demos, I need to talk about something that jumped out at me immediately. And it's going to matter a lot depending on your podcasting experience. And that is gain versus levels. On most mixers and audio interfaces, you've got an input gain stage, and then you have a separate channel level or fader. Gain sets how hard you're driving the microphone preamp at the front end, so you can get like a clean, strong signal without clipping. And then you use like channel level to adjust where it actually sits in the mix. That separation is important because it means you can keep your input safe and clean and still mix the show comfortably, especially when you've got like multiple people with different speaking volumes. With the P4 Next, Zoom uses a simplified approach where the main channel knob is doing most of the heavy lifting. In real use, that means it's very easy to get into clipping territory if you crank it too far, especially if you're trying to solve the I can't hear myself problem by pushing the channel harder. So here's the honest warning. If you're newer to audio and you want something that just works, you might actually love how simple this feels with this single knob design. But if you already understand gauge staging, and you're used to proper separation between gain and faders, you might be disappointed. I'm not saying it's unusable. It's not. I'm saying it's more of a podcast appliance than a traditional mixer. And if you're expecting a more pro-style workflow, this is not going to be it. So, for what it's worth. Now, if this device recorded in 32-bit float, this whole design choice would bother me so much less. Because 32-bit float recording is wildly forgiving when someone laughs or gets excited or leans into a mic, or if you accidentally set the levels too hot. In a 32-bit float world, you can record too loud or too quiet and usually pull it back in post without ruining the take. So if this was a 32-bit float recorder, I'd be more willing to say, yeah, one level control is fine. Just get the range dialed in roughly and you're good. But it's not. It's 24-bit, which is good, but it clips, and clipping is bad. Okay. Now that we've set expectations, let's actually listen to the microphones, because sound quality still matters, and this is where the P4 Next may surprise you. So let's go ahead and pause here while I switch over to the microphones. I'm now using the RE20. This is a dynamic mic, so the phantom power is off. Testing. This is the RE20 on the Zoom PodTrack P4 Next. Normal speaking voice, normal podcast distance. Now I'm going to toggle on some of the built-in tools, including tone, compression, and the AI noise reduction. As I change that, this is with the RE20, the same distance with processing on. Now, what I'm listening for here is whether the processing helps make it sound good without sounding fake or overly squeezed or processed. And honestly, for most people in normal rooms, this cleanup sounds pretty impressive. Okay. Now I'm on the Shure SM7B, and this is the big one because this mic is famous for being gain hungry. It's the mic everyone buys and then immediately learns the phrase, "Do I need a Cloudlifter?" So this is a really good test of whether the P4 Next preamps are actually strong enough to give you a clean, usable level without a bunch of hiss. Phantom power is still off because this is a dynamic microphone. Now testing. This is the Shure SM7B on the Zoom PodTrack P4 Next. Same distance, same voice. Now I'm going to turn on the processing, which is the tone, compressor, and AI noise reduction. If this sounds clean and loud without pushing into noise, that's a really big win for this unit. Now I'm using the Shure SM58. Now, it's not marketed as a podcast mic, but it can absolutely be used for podcasting. So here's the SM58 on the P4 Next. Phantom power still off. Testing. Shure SM58, P4 Next. Same distance, same voice. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn on that processing. Okay. This is the SM58 on the P4 Next with the processing on. And we'll see how that sounds. If this sounds good, this is a win for beginners and a great for grab and go setups. Now I'm on the SC Dynacaster in dynamic mode. Now this one's cool because you can run it like a normal dynamic microphone, or you can power the built-in preamp with phantom power and get a stronger output without having to crank the channel as hard. The boost is currently off, and the Zoom processing is currently on. Testing. This is the SC Dynacaster on the Zoom PodTrack P4 Next. Same distance, normal speaking voice. Okay. Now I've activated phantom power and enabled the boost with the Dynacaster's built-in preamp. Quick reminder, phantom on this unit is global for all inputs, so you'll have to consider that with the microphones you use. You can absolutely use phantom power with other dynamic microphones plugged in. It doesn't hurt them. It's just you'll need that for condenser microphones. Now, you tell me how this one sounds. So this is with the preamp function on going into the Zoom PodTrack P4 Next. So what's the big picture? Compared to the P2, this is absolutely the right product. Monitoring is usable, the overall workflow makes sense, and it actually feels like a real podcast tool built for multiple people. It also has a built-in mix-minus support, which is a big deal if you're taking remote guests over the phone. The 4 headphone outputs make sense in that context. And the processing tools are genuinely helpful if you're recording somewhere that isn't a treated studio, because that's what most people are. But do I have hesitations? Yes. If you're the kind of person who wants traditional gain staging and separate level control, you're going to feel limited fast. And because it's 24-bit, you don't get the forgiveness that would make this one knob thing feel totally safe. You're going to need to leave headroom, watch your meters, and set this up with intention, especially with multiple voices. So here's my final verdict, and I'm going to rate it in a way that's hopefully useful. If you're a podcaster who wants something portable, simple, and fast, you want 4 XLR inputs and 4 headphone outs in one little box, this is a very strong option. I'd give it a solid 4 out of 5. But if you're an audio person, if you understand gain staging, you want separate gain and fader control, and you care a lot about maximizing headroom and minimizing the chance of clipping, this probably isn't your device. For that crowd, it's more of like a 2.5 out of 5. So averaged out for the real-world audience it's designed for, I'm giving the Zoom PodTrack a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's nice. It has its place. Overall, it's a win, but it's not a slam dunk. But yes, the people in my comments were right. It is light years ahead of the P2. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please subscribe if you found this useful. I'm going to be reviewing more podcast equipment and gear in the future. It really means a lot to me. There's links to this unit down below. If you wanted to pick one of these up, go ahead and click one of those links. It really supports the channel. I'm Corinne Joy Votaw, and we'll see you on the pitch.